once I started kind of putting my life together, it was so fascinating how, without even really saying anything, but just living my life more truthfully to my internal direction, almost to that inner voice within my head, that intuition, how it kind of had this cascade effect of people around me, and how honestly they, in a sense, have started living their better lives or best life, if you want to call it that, just because I was doing work on myself. Is that something you noticed within your life as well?
Oh yeah, I refer to it as planting seeds, and I gave this talk recently called "The Time of the Preacher is Over." Of like, nobody wants to be talked at, nobody wants to be preached at anymore. I mean, we're living in this world, we're all vomiting our opinions on one another, but not holding space to understand where they're coming from with this. And so it's like, it's a time to just live intentionally and live deliberately. And that's how you make the change happen around you.
All right.
People will see you, and those who resonate with you and your message and how you're living, they will find you and ask you questions. And then you can open up Pandora's box and go down those wormholes and have fun. But you can't answer a question that hasn't been asked. And I think a lot of people are going around trying to push their views on other people and force it on them. And it doesn't work. It's like it's hitting two magnets,
Right.
the polar ends of the magnets, and it just repels. And so it's like, keep doing your work, everything you can do for you, because it benefits the world around you. Know about other people, but it wasn't mainstream. And I was so fascinated by her journey. She had just come from working with it, and we stayed up like all night just chatting. And she shared with me what happened. And as our conversation came to an end, she left me with the words that I share with everybody now when it comes to plant medicine of, don't seek it out. If you're meant to work with it, it will call you. And at the time, I'm like, what the hell does that mean? It'll call me. Okay. Then you just forget about the conversation and you carry on with your life. Excuse me. And so there I am, stuck in my bed, and the plant starts calling me. And I don't even really remember the steps that I took to get me to Ecuador. Everything just fell into place. Yes, there was nerves when I arrived at this retreat center, 2 hours outside of the closest town. I didn't know a soul there in a foreign country, but it felt right. I felt like I was right where I needed to be. And so night one, or ceremony one, was ayahuasca, and it was powerful. It wasn't as profound. That ceremony wasn't as profound as expectations have been set around what that plant is. But ceremony two for me was San Pedro. And San Pedro, that was my first time hearing about. I knew nothing about San Pedro going into this center. I went there for ayahuasca because that was supposed to do the trick. And holy cow, San Pedro changed my life forever. It was the hardest night of my entire life. It was about 18-hour ceremony. And that was
Wow.
the moment where I started understanding this inner work more than anything. I started understanding how to release myself, to feel my own wings, to let go of these energetic weights I have been carrying on. I had to revisit my car accident and relive my legs getting broken and purge it out, cry it out, throw it up, out,
Wow.
get rid of it. And it was freeing. I had never felt so light and so free and amazing after that night. And it was that night that I went to the owner of the center, and I was just like, I have to be a part of what you have going on here. This is incredible. I have more work to do on me, but like, this was where I got my message. I'm here to be of service. Like, I need to be of service to humanity in any way that I can. And so she said, come back in finish the retreat, of course, which was incredible, but come back in 3 months and you can live here.
That's incredible.
And so after the retreat, I went back to LA. I sold everything I owned down to a backpack, went back to Europe for a little bit to travel around some more. And I moved my entire life and became a manager of this healing center. And yeah, it was part of hundreds of people's connections back to self.
Yeah.
And this was my PhD in life. This is where I started really learning what it meant to connect to self as well connecting with Mother Nature.
Okay.
Through plants. Yeah, I mean, the word that our shaman would drill in us is intention.
Yeah.
What's the point of doing anything if you don't have an intention behind it, especially this kind of work? So if you're doing it just to trip out and then you're going to forget, it's like, well, then what's the point? Okay, do it, have fun. Like if that's what you're called to do, psychedelics can be fun in a recreational setting. I don't see much harm in them. But when you are doing them for soul work, it's like, it's all comes back to intention. What's the point? What do you want from this?
Right.
And they'll give you what you need, but it's starting off in that centered, calm, present space.
And I think intention, even in general, right? Even if we step it kind of back from psychedelics, I feel like that's something that, we should evaluate maybe our whole life from the question of why. Why are you going to work? Why are you going surfing? Why are you going to the gym? Why are you drinking water? Why are you eating this food? And maybe that's kind of a way to even kind of pull people, maybe help people kind of transcend even the 3D of just this, become such a habitual task of what we're doing every single day. And if you just sit there and question, well, why? In a sense, it like kind of pulls you out of your everyday life, and really you can examine everything from like a different level, almost of the observer in a sense.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I would call mindfulness.
Yeah.
Of just taking that step just slightly outside yourself and being the observer of, why am I doing this? Why did I say this? Should I say this? What's the effect it's going to have? Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Intention applies to everything. And if we can start living intentionally and practicing that, boy, will we see our world change for the better.
It would be like almost overnight. Maybe not how do you get there, because the how in a sense isn't important, but what would a world look like if money wasn't a part of it?
Well, we have to let go a lot of the frameworks that we believe today of like, how would anything get done? It's like, well, it would be a whole new system. And that's it. It would just be a completely different system that we can't picture until we just start doing it. So on a small scale, right? If you were to take money out of grocery shopping. So my neighbor across the street knows how to make bread. They enjoy making bread, so they give me bread. I know how to grow carrots. Okay, I'll share my carrots with you. It's like we share, we collaborate. You need, iPhone is the wrong thing because of what comes from it, but like a technology will be different. Our world will be different. Our homes will look different, but it doesn't mean we will be without.
Right.
There doesn't need to be this exchange of this artificial resource that we've printed and assigned a value to. It's only created a lot of separation in our world. It comes back to like fundamentals like water. Water is something I'm very passionate about. Like the reason why people don't have access to clean water in our world is not because there's not enough clean water. It's because we've privatized it. It's because we've roped it off, and when we sell it back to these poor villages.
Right.
I've lived in a lot of these places where it's like Coke and Nestle own the water rights. So it's like we have to start back from that. Let's start sharing water and again, if we start reconnecting back to the earth, we're going to see Mother Nature provide in abundance all the food resources, things that we need. And again, we're not an idle species. We're not just going to sit back and, maybe there will be some people, but there's some people in our current society that's doing that. But most people will hear and heed this higher calling of, okay, me personally, I love teaching. I love sharing metaphysics. I run metaphysical workshops. The law of attraction is like, I sleep this stuff.
Yeah.
And so it's like, I would do that if there was no money involved. I would still be sharing and connecting and outreach and being of service.
Right.
So it's like letting go of like, just totally wipe the slate clean. Stop trying to picture like, how would things get done? It's like, it will be completely different, but don't let change scare you.
Right.
Embrace it. No, I'll just jump in and say that you doing what you're doing right now, like, because we are living in a monetary based society, you will get paid tenfold for this work. And it may not be a direct product of this episode or this podcast, but this podcast is a step on your journey because you were called to do this. And when you start really honing that intuition and listening to this higher self or God, if you want to call it God or the universe or source, that it will always come back to you because you are living your light. You are living your purpose. And when you live your light and purpose, there is no lack.
Right.
And so it's like, you keep showing up, you keep growing, gratitude, grow the gratitude for the space that you're in right now, for this cozy home where it's freezing cold outside, gratitude for this nice mic and these headphones and this computer to do this on. And it's like, the more you are grateful for what you have, the more you will have to be grateful for. And in our family, we call them spiritual paychecks. This is like a term, I guess my mom was using from an age. And it's like these moments where you manifest something and you have no idea where it came from, deep down, but it's like we may have this conversation and you're sharing your wisdom with the world. And then maybe 2 weeks later, you get this lump of money, or you get a discount on something, or you get something for free. And this is the way of the universe communicating with you, of like, we see you, we thank you, and there's so much more to come. We promise.
It's so interesting to hear that, because I've also been battling with this, like the thoughts of what you should do versus like what you should kind of feel. Like, should you just kind of be, feeling versus doing, I guess is kind of the synopsis here. And what I kind of realized is that as I was making this podcast, it's like, okay, well, how are you going to market it? But it's like these like internal or spiritual downloads, I guess people call them, or epiphanies. I'm not really sure if there's much of a difference, but it like kind of guides you in like the next way or next thing to do. And then after you do that thing, it honestly like opens up the next thing. And an example I have is, like, I make these clips for Instagram. So like I'll cut this up and, have like little Instagram things. And I was thinking like, well, what's the next thing to do? But there was a blockage within me to make that next thing because I hadn't finished creating the things for Instagram. And so then once I created those things for Instagram, I finished it up. It's like, all right, what's next? There was like a spiritual download, let's say, to package up all those little clips and just put it on YouTube, And so it's like, you kind of get into that rhythm of just do the task at hand. And then like the next door will open. I feel like there's probably like a biblical thing in there somewhere where like follow the path as it opens or something.
Yeah. And now imagine if you were somebody who had these ideas and then talked yourself out of them.
For sure.
And this is what I work with a lot of people on, of how often do we have these amazing ideas, and in a blip of a second, we are so excited because we can see the reality of it. And then in the next second, we talk ourselves out of it. And we say, I'm not good enough. I'm not smart enough. I'm not strong enough. I'm not pretty enough. All these defeating things that cut you out and then put you right back into old patterns. And so it's this practice of showing up every day. What's one step that I can take today? What is that voice telling me today? And I don't quite see how it's going to lead me somewhere, but it's the action. Right. And for every one step that you take, the universe takes 10,000 on your behalf. All you have to do is move. It doesn't even matter if it's in the direction of what you think your goal is, because you'll know very quickly. If you go behind this door, you'll know really quickly if that's what you need. And if not, you close that door and you try a different door. But if you're just sitting there and staring at these two doors and are paralyzed in fear, you're not going to get anywhere.
Right.
And so like you can't get to this part of putting your clips together had you never started the podcast in the first place. And that's just what I mean. Like abundance is going to flow, and it's all going to make sense of why we're here right now to get you to where you're going.
And it kind of just
and my entire business is built around exactly what you were talking about of, for me, it started with a few words that I saw. And those words was like, oh, to me, that's how you manifest something. It starts with your thoughts and your beliefs, emotions, and this whole hierarchy that you go through in order to turn your thought into a thing or reality. And I saw those words and a voice said, hey, I'm a writer. I love writing. And it's like, a voice was like, just write about those words. So I wrote about them. What am I going to do with this? Then it said, okay, turn it into a workbook. Okay, now I have this workbook. That was a whole nother project. Finish it and the next thing will show up. And I was like, I don't want an ebook. I don't want to be another noisy thing online. And I saw the day that I finished creating the workbook, I looked at it and said, this is my course. This is my first ever digital course. And then the same thing, film the course. How am I going to market this?
Yeah.
Right when I finished that course, I was doing this like video challenge on this Facebook group. And I had won this prize to like a $2,000 ticket to this 3-day conference, a virtual conference where I learned digital marketing. And it was like, okay, how am I going to do with this? And it led, and for the past like 3-4 years now, it's just been, just show up, and whatever you feel called to work on today, put your heart and soul into it, because it's turning into the next thing. You just have to keep trusting that.
That's so beautiful.
That it's like, had I not ever done any of that, have I talked myself out of creating an online course, I wouldn't have the business that I have today and be teaching the things that I'm teaching right now. You have to show up.
That's so beautiful. Right. Number one, you got to realize that you're in that negative space. And then the next step is to want to pursue this life of mystery, this life of fulfillment. And, well, I'm not sure what the next thing is I need to do, but I'm going to do this thing next. I'm not sure what I do after I make the podcast, but I'm just going to make it and see what happens. And it's so bizarre, because it's just a lesson that I've heard and seen throughout different books. And it's just that leap of faith, in a sense, to get yourself to get to that point where you're able to take that leap of faith, quit that job, and do what you need to do to follow your internal guide.
You just have to trust.
Yeah.
The mantra, the universe has my back. You have to trust that. The universe has my back. I am protected. I am divinely protected and provided for. And the hard shit that I've been through in my life was there to teach me something. That has been my greatest teachers.
Right.
And when for me to transcend victimhood is by expressing gratitude for the hardest stuff you've been through in your life. And that doesn't mean saying, oh, thank you that this terrible thing happened to me. It's no, thank you for the lesson that this taught me, because it made me the human I am today.
Right.
I wouldn't wish my car accident on anybody. That was hell. But I'm so grateful I went through. I'm so grateful it was me that did that work. I'm so grateful that it led me to who I am in this moment. And therefore, I feel like I am not a victim to that circumstance anymore. My father dying, whoa, can't say thank you to that. But I feel gratitude that I had the experience, because it made me who I am today. So, I'm devastated that I lost my dad, but I needed that experience in my life. And I see that clear. So I bow to it in gratitude.
Man.
And that to me is like, it's hard work to feel that.
Right.
And gratitude isn't just saying thank you. It's like, it's an inner feeling. And when you really feel that, you let things go, and then you feel guided and trusted in trust.
I mean, that's powerful stuff, right?
With your perspective, your personal hell is you living with regrets, you being in denial, you choosing to be a victim. And then especially when that moment comes, which many of us won't be consciously aware of when death knocks on our door, when you pass away, where is your mindset in that time?
Right.
And if you're stuck with the regrets and the anger, and you're holding on to resentments and have a lot of loose ends, to me, that would be hell. That would be dying and going to hell.
Right.
It's not about, did I sin? Did I, all these things that control has done. It's, how do you feel? Do you feel at peace within yourself and your life? Did you try your best in this lifetime? Are you looking back with smiles and gratitude and love? Welcome to heaven, my friends. That's it.
I think it's amazing that you point that out, because that's something that I've been trying to tell people as well, is that, especially in sacred texts, we try to abstract it as being either above or away from our current plane of existence, right? Like heaven's physically below us, in the earth, hell is physically below us in the earth's core, essentially. And heaven is essentially, in the sky. And, now that I'm thinking about it, it kind of shows that parallel between negative energy and positive energy, where, if you're feeling a high energetic, vibration, right? You got high vibes, you're elevated, you're higher. And that's where hell exists, but it's inside you. It's not in this external world. It's not like, oh, we now have telescopes and can see there's other stars and there's no heaven. It's like, well, that's not what these texts have been pointing to. These texts that we have held true for thousands and thousands, maybe tens of thousands of years. Who really knows how long they've been written? It's that it's in here. It's inside of us. It's something that you're projecting every moment of your existence.
You are the temple of God. You know, these churches that we build are just projections of self. But yeah, again, heaven and hell has been branded and sold to us in order to control us.
Right.
The idea of these are some dude, some probably male, wrote this checklist of how to get in. And if you don't follow them, and it just so happens that this checklist benefits that guy who wrote that, right? You know, I think I have my qualms with organized religion, but that's kind of what it is. We're going to sell you on our ideas of how to be pure, and in return, we're going to get something in exchange. But all the answers are within. Your temple of God, you are the temple. This is our body. Our body is the temple. You want to go to church? Get outside. That is church. You and like I said earlier, your heaven and hell is your perspective. If you and I, Clayton, are standing outside looking, you know, at the beach, and you're having a rough day, that rough day gets carried into your perspective of how you're seeing things. So four eyes, two sets of eyes looking at the same exact picture, we're going to have two different interpretations of it. So you're having a rough day. You may see this cloudy, gray, you know, birds pooping and garbage on the ground, like I said earlier. And because I'm feeling alive and great today, my vibration is high, and I'm seeing just like beautiful surf and the sun, and the birds are chirping for me, and the sand feels soft in my hands. And it's like, it's in those moments that it's like, yes, it's within you to shift. What am I seeing? What am I choosing to take in, and how am I interpreting it?
And I guess, speaking of ceremonies, I feel like that's something that kind of happens, right? You start to, when you're, let's say, tripping, you come into that present moment like fully, in a sense. It becomes very intimate with the present moment, in a sense. Is that something that you kind of have seen with like your experiences and the way that you've kind of worked with these medicines?
Yeah, because in the present moment is all that exists. That's all there is. So everything like that you're thinking about future is a fake story, and everything from the past is a fake story. You know, it may be your truth, but it's you retelling a story of something that maybe happened, and our brains don't do a very good job of it. So yes, plant medicine and in a ceremonial sense, you're so present, and that's the power of it. Of another thing, one of my shamans would say quite often was, what you experience in ceremony is just a prequel to what you can achieve in meditation.
Just a prequel.
So meditation is even more powerful than seeking out and doing again, like this is like people are wanting to do this path, and if you're called to it, awesome, I support it. But you can bypass all that work and seeking out plant medicine by just learning how to sit with yourself, by going into the stillness.
And that's an important thing to point out, because after telling certain people that I have done, you know, these ceremonies with plant medicine, with mushrooms, you know, some of them can't do it because of either their job or, you know, this, that, and everything else in between. What they've asked is like, well, can you get to this place of seeing the world through this lens without it? And my answer was always, well, I don't know, because I didn't take that path. Well, and what you're saying and what I've realized with other people is that you can get there, right? It's not that you have to have these or that you need these. I mean, it's just like you're saying, if you're called to it, if maybe you have trauma so deep and so held down that a lifetime of therapy might not be beneficial. I don't know. I'm being hyperbolic here. But, you know, it kind of takes away those layers and helps expose you, in a sense, to that true nature of self, and can certainly help as a springboard. But like you're saying, you can get there on your own, right? You don't have to use it. You don't have to go to the Andes Mountains to experience it, because it all is right here within you.
Yeah, and the work really comes after. And I think that's a big piece people are missing too, of it's how are you integrating? How are you taking these tools and these teachings? That's what a ceremony is a teaching. And whether you're sitting in front of a guru or a Buddhist monk, they're providing a teaching. I see this with church, right? A perfect example in yoga. Let's put them both together. If we go to this place, we worship, we get our teaching. We go to a yoga studio, we do this practice, this internal work, but then we go back into the world and keep being our miserable self, or we don't apply. The work is an integration. So it's like, after a ceremony, how are you utilizing this? And yes, absolutely, it's not for everybody. And it doesn't mean you're of any lesser than anybody else if you're not called to do this. Spirituality and consciousness has a billion different diving boards.
Right.
There is not one linear way. It's am I going to jump or am I not?
Right.
That's it. The second you jump, you're on a level playing field with everybody. There is nobody higher up. Spirituality isn't this linear thing. It's a collective consciousness. It's an awareness from within. So if your path isn't leading you to this plant of path or plants, then just stay wide open. Keep your eyes open, because your path will unveil exactly what it is. And you'll have your awakenings. You'll have what they call kundalini rising in yogic tradition. Every tradition has their version of what we're talking about with indigenous and shamanic practices. That's one form of thousands. And I've met lots and lots and lots of people on this path that are so intuitive and so in tune, and it was not a byproduct of a psychedelic. They had never worked with a psychedelic.
Right.
And so it's just to each their own. This is my journey, my story, where I was led, but everybody's spiritual path is completely different. And where you get into trouble, where the ego comes in, is when you're trying to compare yours to somebody else's.
Right.
Or you're doing it because you think you're going to attain something higher because somebody else did. And it's going to backfire.